Max O'Dowd is a New Zealand-born opening batsman for the Netherlands who has quietly gone about fashioning a strong record across all three formats. He grabbed the headlines earlier this year when he guided the Dutch home in a monstrous chase of 370 against Scotland in an ODI in Dundee. Opening the innings, he made an unbeaten 158 from just 130 balls to take his team to victory with 4 balls remaining and 4 wickets in hand. He's now played 150 matches for his adopted country across both ODIs and T20 internationals, and in this discussion, he talks about the famous names he played with in age group cricket, a ripper of a story about Lockie Ferguson's raw pace, the great advice he received when developing a sweep shot, and how a perfect week's training looks for him. He begins our conversation by sharing how his ascension into international cricket came about.
2014, I went over to the UK.
Yep.
I played a season in Brighton. And I grew up playing the youth stuff in the Netherlands, so they'd asked me if I was available to play a 19s game. So I was like, yeah, I'm available. Played 2 under 19s games. Then they were like, oh, do you want to come and play the A cricket against Guernsey? And I was like, yeah, I'll play. And then got like a 20 ball 40. And then they were like, oh, we're going to select you for the World Cup qualifiers in Scotland and Ireland for the Netherlands. And I was like, okay. And then someone got injured, and then I played, and then got like a 15 not out, and then we won and we qualified, and then I was in India like the following year. So it all happened within like 6 months, pretty quickly.
Wow.
And I think I'd played. Peter Boren got me over to play like 2 games for VRA whilst I was in the Netherlands prepping for the under 19. So I played like 2 club games, but I wasn't really around. And then obviously the World Cup and post World Cup 2016, they were like, well, if you want to, keep being considered for the Netherlands, you probably going to have to come play over here. And that's when 2017 was my first season in the Netherlands, full season. So yeah.
Cool, man. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have much insight into how it all started for you, so I didn't realize you were playing underage for them as well.
No, I did everything. Like I was obviously born in New Zealand, and then I moved to the Netherlands when I was about 5. And then from 5 until 12, I played all the youth stuff. So like under 9s, under 10s, under 12s, all for the Dutch team. And then eventually moved back to New Zealand when I was 13, and like played all the district tournaments, like the Auckland district tournaments. And I still had my like orange helmet. So I found that was like my big thing in order to try and get selected, was like if the orange helmet was still out in the middle and you had like, I don't know, of Hayden Gardner and Kieran Carberry walking around, you could see like just this orange lid. He's like, oh, he's still going. Like, who's that kid? Oh, he's still batting, like just chewing him up. But at least he's out there.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I got started there.
Okay. And so who was in your sort of year to 2 years age bracket for age group cricket?
That are currently still playing.
Yeah.
So my team was like Jordan Sussex. He's contracted at Auckland. I'm trying to think. Like played a lot with Ish,
Yeah.
Cam Fletcher. Played a lot against Kyle Jameson. I'm trying to think who else was in my.
When you
Like,
say played against, did he go to Christchurch early? But I thought he was an Auckland boy.
no, KJ's always been Auckland. Yeah. So Kyle he played for Manukau district, but he was a batter back then. So
Yeah.
he used to bat, and then I think he went to Lincoln, or I don't know. I don't actually know, but he moved to Christchurch and then became the bowler that he was. But yeah, played a lot against him. I'm trying to think, like not many people. Oh, Chappie a little bit, but he was a bit younger than me, so a lot of those guys kind of either played, like my age group was all either played a little bit and then when they got older stopped, or like Ish and Cam and those guys kind of went on. Sussex still obviously got his first couple contracts, I think 2 years ago with Auckland, which is awesome because he's just been like smoked with injuries.
Okay.
And he always had so much potential. So yeah, those are the main guys really. But then like school cricket, playing against like Lockie, even club cricket against Lockie, it's always pretty awful, but good fun. I'm trying to think. Yeah, there's those are the main ones that really spring out at me, just because
Would
of
Lockie
the
be maybe
careers they've
2
had.
years older than you?
Yeah, I think Lockie's like 33, so I'm 31. So Lock's,
Yeah.
yeah, 33. So he's obviously played him when he was playing for Parnell, and
Yeah.
I remember him actually. I was like, I would have been 18 or 17 maybe, playing making my one of my earlier games for Tekka Prems, and it was at Oniwa, and they had like Tiffany Friday, Walshy who bowled gas, Michael Ravlich who I think took 86 wickets that year, and then Lockie, and then I remember standing or batting with Blake Douglas, and Lockie had bowled me this ball. He didn't have a mid off, and it was like this half volley, and I like crunched it past mid off. And as soon as I had it, I was like, oh my God, why did I do that? It's just like the dumbest thing I could have done. And then he was like, round the wicket, fine leg gully, man under the lid, fly slip. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm 17, mate. And he just got a barrage, and I was just like wearing them on the glove, just like tucking them off the corner, got off strike. And I just literally, I was, when you're that age, you're kind of like, what am I? I don't want to do this. And I just stood on my bat down the other end and just let Blake I was like, go on then, show me how it's done, senior. So, yeah, those are the good times.
Oh, that's a brilliant story, mate. Thanks
Yeah,
for sharing, man. That's
no,
quality.
of course.
Um, yeah, because I only faced Lockie a couple of times in club cricket. Thankfully, it wasn't one of his sharper days, but
Mm,
we did have a couple of A trainings at the indoor at Eden Park.
mm,
Oh, he's off 8 paces, but I mean he's
yeah,
on shoulder anyway, right? So it's
yeah,
on concrete just coming at you.
yeah.
It's no fun, is it?
Yeah, you just got to show, in the nets, you got to show pure respect to them. I think if you want to survive, I think as soon as you try and take them on, like I've seen it at the Aces trainings where like he's coming off like having a laugh, like just like I'm facing him, I'm, nah, just like blocking it, and it's like T20 training, I'm just like nah, like we're all good, mate. Yeah, bowling well. And then you've got some boys just like teeing them up. I'm like, what are you doing? And then it's just, that like wide load up, wide of the crease,
Yeah.
into the armpits. You're like, yeah, I'm good for that for now. Save that for match day.
So what has your sort of communication with the Aces been like over the years? Like, have you ever been really close, or like how much training have
Um,
you done? Or
it's been a mixed bag, really. It's when Dougie Watson was head coach. I made my debut 23 or 24, I think. So I played, and like I'd always wanted to play for the Aces. Like I was like, oh, I want to play for the Aces so bad. I want to play. I want to play. And then like it almost got to a stage where I was like, actually, like I'm pretty content with not playing anymore, and like I'm really happy with me where my career is going with the Dutch team and all that kind of stuff. And then I'd done well, and Doug was like, oh, you're going to play. I was like, oh, gun, like first game, first ball, I think's coming. Next game, like 5 off 9. And I was like, no, I'm happy if that's my Aces career. At least I could say that I've played a couple T20s. But nah, there hasn't been much communication really. Like I've been playing club cricket when I go back. I try and play when I can for Hibiscus. And yeah, I mean, like I've made myself available at certain times, and I think um, it's been mixed in the sense where sometimes I feel like there's an opportunity, and sometimes I feel like there's not. And if they want to stick with the local guys, and so be it. But I actually feel like a local, and I'm playing club cricket, and I'm actually born and bred Auckland, so I feel sometimes that's a bit of a dagger to the heart when they say we want to stick with our local guys when I am. But I also understand that I'm not around that often with my other commitments, so um, it's in terms of like keeping a core group together and having guys to create a certain culture around the group. You need that, and having a guy come in and out, even though I feel like I'd add value, can sometimes cause issues, not for the group, but maybe for players who are on the fringes, seeing, what's this guy doing, coming in and out. I never want to be that kind of hindrance, but I don't feel like I would be a hindrance coming in and out. I feel like I could add value, not just as a player, but also, I guess, as a teammate, and helping those younger guys who um, might need a bit of help in terms of dealing with all sorts of things. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where it's at with Auckland, but it's all good. Like I'm pretty content with where I'm at the moment.
And have you always been a dasher, someone that likes to take the positive option?
I wouldn't say I have always been a dasher. I think I have always been someone who succeeds when I try and play like that. So when I was younger, um, I feel like if I had the same mindset and mentality I've had for the last 7 years, um, I would have been a completely different player now, or yeah, definitely back then. I think back then I was a bit more tentative, a bit nervous. Like I was still big and strong, but just wouldn't take that option. I'd rather just. I was yeah, often, a lot of young guys experience you don't want to get out. You're afraid of getting out, so you kind of go into your shell a little bit and play a certain way. And then some days you'll just be like, oh, I'll just play this way, and you're like, oh, people are watching from the outside. Oh, this guy, he smokes it. So why don't you just do that all the time? And it's funny looking back like that. But yeah, I think it's been a bit of a mixed bag, especially when I was younger. But now it's more my style of play, and I'm still trying to get better at it. Like there's definitely, if you compare me to some of the other T20 openers in the world, ODI openers who have like a very high strike rate, are quite different, and you could arguably say more aggressive than me. But so I'm always just trying to level that part of my game up, to really be that ultimate, I guess, basher or smasher for the team.
So you touched on there, potentially looking back retrospectively on your junior career and wishing you had the mentality you now have. I'm wondering, in terms of the conflict between fear of getting out and being aggressive and playing your shots, was there some reluctance to do that as a junior player? Because was it simply the fear of getting out, or was it when you tried it on and you'd taken a few, say, riskier options on and it hadn't paid off, you walked off and you thought maybe you should have taken a different option? Like, I'm interested, was that sort of playing into your personality, and is that why it didn't feel comfortable, and has that sort of evolved over the years?
It's definitely evolved. I think if you look at the younger game, I think it's changed a bit now, but back then it was like, especially at district tournaments, you're playing for spots. So you're playing for a spot on the Auckland team or the youth team, and it was so outcome driven when you were younger. You're not actually like really dialing it back to the process at hand. So like I compare my game now, it's very process driven. It's all about what am I doing at training? Am I doing the right things at training? Is this going to help me prepare best? And then come game day, I'm not even really thinking about anything. I'm just thinking about what's in front of me, the risk management. Am I taking the right options? Does this suit the stage of the game we're in? Is this what the team requires of me? That kind of thing. But back when you're a kid, you don't think about that. You just think about like, shit, okay, if I can get like a 60, this will look really good. Like Nick White's going to be really impressed, or Dre's going to be like, yeah, no, like he can bat. And it's so funny because if I just had this thought of when I was young, I was like, all right, I've done all this work throughout the week, great, now I'm just going to play. I think so many young kids out there, like you look at the best guys, that's how they play, especially from a young age. Like even guys who aren't playing professional cricket anymore, who always used to dominate, like Simon Hickey, for example, stopped playing cricket, ended up playing rugby, but he just would go out and score runs all the time. And I think you look at like the rugby mentality, it's so like process driven, especially in New Zealand with the All Blacks. It's like, so you do your skills, you do your work, you do your processes, and then you just go and play and you put in 100% effort. And that's like, it's not like that in cricket, or it wasn't for me anyway. When I was a kid, it was like, um, like I said, it was just about results. That's how you used to think. Whereas I wish I'd had that kind of drilled into me, or I discovered that myself. Like I kind of discovered it later down the line, where it's like, can I actually just focus on my processes and let the game be the game? And some days you're going to get out, and some days you're going to score a 80, and some days you're going to score a 30, and some days you're going to feel terrible and score runs, and some days you're going to feel great and score none. So it's like, that's the beauty of cricket, unfortunately.
Well said, man. Uh, you touched on training and processes, and acknowledging that you're at a stage in your career where it sounds like you may be closer to a blueprint in terms of
Mm.
your optimal week. Realizing that's hard to come by, but if you are trying to set up the perfect week for yourself, how does that look from a training perspective?
Um, so let's say I'm playing cricket on a Saturday, so I've got an international on a Saturday. I know I've got Monday through to Friday to pretty much do my work. Um, I have to get some gym session in, so like Monday at least minimum twice the week. Then in terms of training, I'd base it all around what I'm going to face on the Saturday. So if it's let's say Sri Lanka, it's going to be spin heavy. So what are my best options? How can I prepare best for that? So for like the 2022 World Cup in Australia, um, I knew I was going to open the batting against Sri Lanka, and they had Thikshana, who would run in and bowl these sliders at the stumps on a pretty average wicket in Geelong, where square boundaries are short, straight was like massive, and the outfield was long. So my boundary options are going to be quite square. So the whole week leading up to it, like I did a lot of work sweeping, figuring out the best ways to um, sweep the balls I thought he might bowl, and then really doubling down on like the ultimate ball that I thought he could bowl. So the one that I thought if I got it wrong, he would get me out, which would be like a quick in ducking Yorker on like middle stump, because I was going to go across the stumps, give away my stumps, and hope he followed, and then I could just like help it on its way. And then I'd just have like, I don't know, I did like early in the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'd do like just Yorkers, the ultimate like execution on the bowler's end, and I'd try and hit that so that if he did miss, I was set up for that, and if he nailed it, I could also hit that. So I think that's like a thing that I really work on now is rather than like doing range hitting, for example, I would or if I do range hitting, I'd obviously get my feel goods in there, but then I'd really focus on like bowler executing and then how can I nail this? Because guys are getting better all around the world, and most of the time they're not missing that much. So it's like, what does it look like when they nail it and you nail it as well? Then all of a sudden that pressure fully switches. Um, and then also I just try and just do a bit of like network. Sometimes I like just facing sidearm with not much um, writing about it, just more like body positions. Am I still at contact? Is my head like in a strong position where I don't feel like I'm too far right, too far left? Am I making clean contact? Like those kind of things. But at the end of the day, like those aren't the be all and end all, because like I said before, like I've had some of the worst net sessions before a game and then like scored runs, and I've had some of the best net sessions before and not scored any runs. So it's such a fickle kind of mind game where you're like, you can't let your training determine how you're going to feel on match day. So it's like just understanding that even if you have a shit net, it's like, okay, well, I've actually put in the work and it probably wasn't ideal, but I've done what I've set out to do. And now I've just got to go and try and translate it into a game, which isn't always the easiest thing, but at least I'm mentally kind of around the fact that I've done the work. Now I just got to go and try and do the job.
Love that, man. That's
Mm,
awesome. As you say, like the longer your career goes, the more experiences you have, both good and bad, right? And it's
mm.
it's it's not as easy to, yeah, just simply say, oh, I had a good week's training and therefore that's going to equate to a good outcome in the game, right? There's
It
so
really
many
does.
variances. Exactly, exactly. I love that. So in terms
Mm,
of, oh, I'm really intrigued now. You talked about your feel goods, getting some feel goods, right? So can you
mm.
just go into that in a little bit more detail in terms of what you mean by that?
So feel goods is more like how I'm moving rather than what I'm receiving. So like a feel good could be like it could be nipping around, it could be really tough, but I feel like I'm in a good position. Or like for me, when I really feel good is when I sometimes just don't get out in a net. Like especially if it's a tough net. Like if it's a tough net and I'm really grinding through this period, I'm in good positions, I'm making good contact. Like I rarely leave the ball, but sometimes you're like, you've left a good one. You're like, yeah, okay. Like I'm in a good position to make that right decision. So that's really what I try and think about with my feel good nets is like, can I get in a position to make a good decision, rather than can I just like get a guy throwing me like half volleys and I'm just pumping it, because you can get a little bit lazy with your positions and where you are. Because at the end of the day, like a lot of the time when you're batting in a game is like, it's just like decision, or especially for batters, it's like that, just that risk management and like making the right decisions at the right times, and getting yourself in the best position technically will often give you a better chance to make that right decision. So for me, that's like a feel good, is like just making sure I'm in the right positions to make the right decisions. And because I've played for so long now, I kind of know what that feels like for me. And some guys, it might be, a little bit tougher to figure that out. And some guys have also kind of figured that out themselves. So that's where I'm at with my field good kind of sessions.
So going back now to the Deekshana example you gave, was there any way you were able to manipulate conditions in order to prepare best for the game? And how were you talked about changing lengths, so you were talking about facing both Yorkers and his good length. So was
Mm.
that just via bowling machine, or did you have another version?
No, so obviously we got the coaches who throw to us, but it just doesn't have to be a coach. You can be your teammate or my mate. And obviously playing with the Dutch, we don't have the luxury of 15 staff. We've got World Cup, it's a little bit better. We can bring more, but a lot of our stuff, especially now training in the Netherlands, is kind of a lot of pair work, just because we've got 3 coaches at the moment. So a lot of it, I just have to pull a teammate and say, this is what I want to do. Just do this for me. So in that instance, it was him just like, Dan Christian was our batting coach, and he was like, I said, this is what I want, Dan, just throw me this. And he just threw him, just Yorkers, 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 Yorkers. I was like, all right, just throw some good length, good length. I was out now, just throw me anything, and I'll just react. And that was pretty much that. And then I did it the morning of the game as well, just on my hit before the game, just throw me these, and then that was that.
And so if we're talking about the sweep specifically, what are the keys from a technical perspective that you're trying to nail when you're playing the shot?
Well, so I did a lot of work with Scotty Edwards, who, in my opinion, is like one of the best sweepers of the ball in the world. I think he's actually scored the most runs from the sweep shot in world cricket since like 2023. Um, but I used to lead a lot with my feet, and that caused me, or with my front foot, sorry. So that caused me to like play around my front pad a lot. And what I live with Scotty, and I have done for the last 5 years. We did a lot of work one summer where he would just throw me these Yorkers. Like he would throw me the hardest, but like for the first 2 weeks, it was awful, right? Like I'd just stand there. He's like, all right, you just have to sweep no matter what I throw you. Even if you feel like you can't sweep it, you have to sweep it. And he was just throwing me these like Yorkers, and it was just like hitting me on the toe. Then he'd throw me like a length ball, and I'd like defend it. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, you got to sweep it. So the main thing is actually just to lead with your hands and your head. And you're always looking to meet it on the full. And then naturally, if it's shorter, you'll hit it. So over time, actually, like I always say to guys who now come to me and are like, oh, I want to work on the sweep shot, youngsters especially, I want to work on the sweep shot. What should I do? I'm like, if you just train the ball that is the hardest to hit from the get go, everything else will be a piece of piss. Like, so I had Scotty throwing me these like left arm round the wicket, like hummers in at my toe, like leg stump Yorkers, and I was just like pumping them. And then if he'd bowl a ball that was like slower, wider, you're in a position to hit that Yorker, and then it was like, okay, I'll just knock that down for one. Um, but I think the main technical thing is definitely getting out there with your hands and your head and trying to meet it. Because it's funny, like you'll see, I moved to the offside, and most guys, not so much like the best spinners in the world, like Santner and Shakib Al Hasan, like they always went wide and slower. But like a lot of other guys will just like firing at the stumps, and then you're like, perfect, that's exactly what I want. Just got to get bat on it, and it goes. So if you can kind of set up for that, you'll hit it, you'll get what you want. And then the other ones that are might be a little bit harder to score off, you might get one, but you probably won't get out to them. So that's where like that was the big thing, was like leading with the hands and your head, not so much with your foot.
Awesome, man. That's great advice.
Mm.
If we come back now to just the formative years from an international career perspective, it wasn't until your 15th innings that you passed 50 for the first time in T20 internationals. So
Mm.
in that time, if you can recollect, what types of thoughts and feelings are you having? Are you starting to doubt your ability at the level? Are there any technical changes you're looking at? What are you going through at that point?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I think those first few games of my T20 career, that I was all batting down the order. So a lot of the time, like I think that's also where my strike rate's a bit low, because I'd love to see my strike rate just individually as an opening batter, but because I batted down the order for the first part of my career, I think I never really obviously got the amount of balls or scores that I wanted. But um, even as like, let's say we move past that first 50 that I got, there were definitely times, even opening the batting, where I went through phases where I went through technical changes. Obviously, I had like a very unique batting technique for quite a while, which has now kind of evolved into something a little bit different. Um, and I always used to question it a little bit because it looked quite bizarre, but it was still kind of creating results for me. Even past the 15th, past my first 50, even when I'd scored 100 the week before in club cricket, I'd then be like, well, can I actually translate this into international cricket? And then I would. And then like the next game, I might not score runs, or I'd get out knowing how they'd try and get me out. And that would be like, oh shit, maybe this isn't the right thing, or maybe I need to adjust this. Um, and I think it mainly came down to just, for me, the inconsistency in my technique. Like there was a lot of movement, a lot of like hands everywhere. I was moving around a lot in the crease. So in order for it to be like perfect, everything had to be in sync. Which thankfully, like it was quite a lot of the time. But then when it wasn't, it was like pretty awful, and it led to a lot of mistakes and like just being off balance and not being in the right positions and so on and so on. So now I've got to a point where I'm just very still, and I don't actually do a pre-movement anymore. I just stand still, but more open, hands are high, and it's become way more efficient, way more consistent in terms of what I can expect and what I need to do in order to how I want to play the game.
Now, because you mentioned you'd be interested in what your strike rate was down the order, I've jumped
Mm,
into Stats Guru on Cricket Info.
okay.
And what has actually tweaked my interest is not necessarily a strike rate down the order. It's actually when you've opened the batting, uh, you've faced the first ball in 17 innings in T20 internationals, and you've batted second, as in your partner's
Yeah.
faced the first ball of the innings in 56 matches. That would
Mm.
lead me to believe you prefer not to face the first ball.
I always just went off what the other guy said. I was like, "What do you want?" And they're like, "First ball." I'm like, okay, sweet. Like I don't really care. Like Vikram, I opened with Vikram for a long time. He always wanted first ball. Steph, I think, always wanted first ball. And then Michael Levitt, who I open with now, is like, he wants the first ball. And then we went through a stage where it was like, because Steph and Vikram were both lefties, if an off spinner came in, I'd just face the first ball. So, but I think there's like my average and strike rate facing the first ball is like way better than my. So everyone's like, why don't you just face first ball? I reckon that's just bullshit. Like, I think it's just like it's like what do you call it? Whatever the word is for it.
Just luck.
Superstition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. Averaging 44 at a strike rate of 128 when you face the first ball,
Mm.
and then averaging 28 at a strike rate of 122 when you don't face the first ball but you open.
Yeah.
So, look, I don't want to put that seed in your head,
I'll
Maximo.
just take the first from now on.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, now into like if you just look retrospectively back on your career for the Dutch, is there an innings that you've played for them that you're most proud of, and why would that be?
Um, there's a couple. I think I scored a first class 100 against Ireland at Malahide, which I would have been like 24. Um, I was quite proud of that because we were under the pump and Boyd Rankin was bowling well. And there, I was like pretty young in the team and didn't really know where I was at. I was getting more like I wasn't actually supposed to go on that tour, but Cambo was like, "No, I want you to come, but you're coming as a bowler." And I scored those runs. And that was like a proper grind. That was like overnight, um, going to bed on like 70 and then having to score 30 runs the next day. So I was quite happy with that one. But I think my best one was probably the recent 150 against Scotland, a couple of months ago. Like that was obviously my maiden ODI 100, and then chasing 374, doing it in the last over. That was I was pretty stoked with that one.
And so if we do go into that innings in a little bit more depth, how did you approach that one mentally to chase down such a big score?
Well, the beauty is we've actually done that before. We did it against the West Indies in the qualifiers. We chased actually the exact same 374, but it was a tie and it went to a super over. Um, and it was like the same kind of mindset where it was like we can actually chase this. Um, and Cookie, our head coach, comes in and he just breaks down the innings like quite simply by like your 5 over blocks. It's like, all right, can we be here after 10? Can we be here after 20? If we're around here at 30, like we're on track. If we're around here at 40, I was like, what do we think we can get in the last 10? Okay, great. Then we need to be here at the 40th. So it's quite like it was broken down quite nicely. And then the thing that Cookie said was like, just the only thing you need, he was like, obviously it's gonna be tough, but just focus on getting off strike every ball. Like every time you're on strike, can you just get off strike? Whether that's one, he's like, you can't be striking under 100 when you're out there, pretty much. Um, and that's just how I kind of went at it. I was like, well, all right, I'm just going to go bat and I'm going to try and get off strike every ball. If I get a ball that I think I can hit, then I'll try and hit it. And it's nice because obviously the pressure's off you a little bit. Like no one expects you to chase 370, so you can kind of play that style, but still, like you still think you can chase it deep down. So I really like the sentiment of like I just need to strike it over 100 this whole innings in order for us to win. And the wicket was flat, the outfield was gas, so it was like, all right, well, I'll just see where I'm at after the 30th over if I'm still in. And then it was just one of those days where it kind of worked. Yeah, I mean, I can't really say much more. It was like just trying to be proactive and positive in the crease, moving around, giving myself space, getting on the inside of it. Just never really trying to let the bowler settle. It wasn't like one of those games where you could have a lull period where they could be on top. Like you always just had to keep working, really try and find a way to keep the scoreboard ticking. You just never wanted it to like just stagnate. So I think we did that really well. Like it wasn't just me because I was there at the end, but like Noah Crows came in, got like 50 off 20. Tasia came in, got like 50 off 30. And without those innings, like I'm probably taking a risk I don't have to. Whereas they came in and just like made my job so much easier because I could just go, oh, I'm just going to keep going. If I'm here at the 48th, we'll probably got a good chance of winning this. And that was like really big in terms of winning that game was the little partnerships we had throughout that whole innings.
Awesome, man. It must have been an incredible feeling at the end there, being there at the
Yeah,
end.
it was pretty cool. Obviously scoring my 100 was nice, and I've been wanting to because I just haven't been able to get over the line and ODIs getting that 100. But then to do it in that fashion and most importantly pull the stump out. Like I think that's the thing we talk about as batters. It's just like being there at the end and being the one to pull it out, and that was really quite special just because. Obviously scoring 100 was great, but then just like seeing the Scottish boys just groveling a little bit was also quite nice. So yeah.
Right. So now if we move to back to your training. So if you think about like a strength of your game would be your power game. So How do you practice that? And is there anything that you've changed with your technique over the years in order to generate more power?
Um, yeah, so a lot of the power stuff is an interesting one because like everyone sees me as like this big power hitter, but I think if you look at my like career, I've hit sixes, but I've hit way more boundaries. So I feel like, sorry, way more fours. So I tend to like not clear the rope that often. I tend to clear the inner ring and then um, get my value that way. But a lot of the work that I've done hasn't been really to gain more power. It's just to gain more consistency. Um, and it's kind of I feel like naturally I can be quite powerful and I can hit the ball a long way. Um, but for me, that's like not really what I'm after in my batting. It's not really being able to clear the boundary. It's more being able to split the field. Because I feel if I'm still in like towards the end of an innings, my power will just naturally be good enough because I'm in the flow in that flow state. And as an opener, I don't feel like you need to be that. You don't need to bomb sixes like over the head. It's nice, but if I can score 12 off the over and boundaries rather than just and fours rather than two sixes, then that also works for me. But I guess for me, like technically, like I said, my hands were everywhere. I was moving a lot. I just wanted to be able to score um, more 360, I guess. So I always struggled a lot with guys coming into my hip and not being able to hit boundaries. So did a lot of work just stepping on the inside. Can I pick up balls? Because obviously naturally, like I'm quite strong through the offside. So if I can pick you up off my hip, then that window of execution becomes so much smaller. I feel like I'm quite strong up the ground as well. So um, if you overpitch, like I back myself to go back over your head. If you go wide on the offside, I back myself to hit you through there. And if you come too tight, then I back myself to go there. Which sounds like I can hit it everywhere, but obviously it doesn't always work like that. But yeah, in terms of like building power, I think a lot of that comes from actually getting the body right, but also getting the hands in a good position. Like I did work with Julian Wood, who's a power hitting coach when I was in the BPL in Bangladesh. He was my coach there. And he spoke a lot about like separation of hands to the body. So you look at a lot of guys who are like brute force hitters, like a Liam Livingston or Tim David, those kind of guys. They all have like quite a nice separation between their hands and their hips. When they're striking the ball, there's that like nice gap. As soon as it comes too tight in at you, there's like not that you don't have that leeway or that freedom to like swing the arms through. So we did work with like, can I get my hands a bit further away from the body? Can I get that quicker snap, like that golf compression? When you hit that golf ball, like can I get that compression on the ball? And then we did work with like heavier balls, heavier bats, hand speed drills, like all sorts of things like that. And it helped a little bit, but I feel like it's not like you go out looking for it. It's almost like you do all this work kind of over time, and then naturally, subconsciously, without you even realizing, you've actually become better and your hands are a little bit further and your compression's a little bit quicker just from doing that kind of work.
Awesome. Makes sense.
Mm.
Uh, Want to look now in terms of training. So I touched on it before, but what opportunity do you have to try and train in conditions similar to what you play in, like in terms of facilities where you are at home there in the Netherlands as such? Maybe when
um,
you
yeah, I'll be honest. It's quite tough. Not in the sense that we don't have facilities. We have got great facilities here. Good wickets. We've got about four different. Well, we got three main facilities we could train at. Grass wickets, grass centres, indoor nets, everything you want, and they're all high quality. It's just that in associate cricket, you often don't get the best wickets when you tour. So apart from Scotland and the Netherlands, like we went to Oman and it was like a disgrace. Like I think one of the games there was the first ODI in history where it was 100 overs a spin and it was like 110 plays 60 across like 90 overs. So you often come up against in games like that, and then you I don't know, you might go to Nepal where if you bat first, it's like unplayable, it's turning sideways, and then later in the day, it's just like this absolute flat track. So it's like massively toss dependent. Then you can go to the States. In the States, you could get a really nice one, or you could get something quite bad. Um, the Netherlands has had the same. Sometimes you get like slow wickets. Sometimes they leave the grass on and it's like an absolute belter. And then Scotland is mainly always pretty consistently flat. So yeah, it's varying conditions everywhere, just like it is in the world cricket, in the full member cricket. But I do think when you play more full member cricket, because of the broadcasting, because of the eyes on the games, there's like a certain standard that has to be met for it not to look like a bit of a joke. So most of the times, when we go to World Cups or you go to like we're going to Bangladesh at the end of this month, it's going to be pretty nice, and that's like the cricket we want to be playing, and we feel like we should be playing. But yeah, that's a stepping stone that you have to get to first.
In terms of your mentality opening the batting and T20 internationals in particular, you touched on it before where you mentioned, your focus in that ODI 100 that you scored was just constantly trying to find a way to put the bowler under pressure. So when you're opening batting, you're in the first 6 overs, is your typical first port of call to look to put the bowler under pressure? Are there times potentially when you're having a look for 2 to 3 overs, maybe when you're not sure of conditions?
Yeah, I think um, especially in T20 cricket, I think that the days of having a look are probably gone. Um, I think there's definitely times in the game where you have to just take a step back, and for me, it's all just about like risk management and how quickly can you assess um, high risk and what's low risk. So you might you might go out and bat on like a flat track. It doesn't really matter who's bowling. Like um, a risk, the level of risk will just change completely. So for me, like if I get a half volley on middle stump, like hitting back over the head, trying to pump it back over his head for six would be like very low risk. Or if I get a short and wide ball, like throwing the kitchen sink at it for me is quite low risk. But then like trying to ramp a first ball would be extremely high risk. So it's just about once again getting myself in a position to make the best decision, and then just fully committing to that decision that I make. So yeah, but then again, sometimes you might get out on a wicket that's a little bit more difficult, and actually, you being out there is far more valuable than you flying at 10 and over because they want to set better at the end. So then your risk changes, and the option of going back over the head might actually become higher risk because that's not what the team needs. So that's like the ebbs and flows of it, I guess. And especially playing cricket for the Netherlands, there's so much at stake all the time. It's not it's really difficult to be selfish because you want to give the team the best opportunity to win, because that doesn't just help the team, it helps you as well. It's not like playing for Australia or India where you could lose a series 5-0. It doesn't mean anything. They don't go to qualifiers. They don't, Scotland haven't qualified for this upcoming World Cup. Italy have. And Scotland now have to go play in a sub-regional in Cyprus against Finland and Sweden. And that's like, and we were one, if we'd lost to Italy, we were in that same position. And that's like what associate cricket is like. All the time you're playing for something. Like I would have been unemployed if we didn't qualify. They weren't going to extend our contract. So that's like how fickle associate cricket is. It's just constantly, there's so much pressure. And that's why understanding and like managing risk is actually so much tougher than I guess playing, full member. Like that's probably, there might be someone listening who's like, oh, you're full of shit. Like that's the exact same, but who knows? But that's just, that's just how I feel about it, because there's always something riding on our games. And like I played in the BPL, in Bangladesh, and it was like, man, I could nick off for 0 6 times in a row. It doesn't change anything. I'm still going to get paid. Or actually, if I go out and hit 100, then great, I might sign a deal somewhere else. It's like you actually being selfish there aids you, but it doesn't aid the team because that's just what it's like. No, that's just how it works.
Understood, man. Yeah, it's a fair point in terms of it. It sounds like there's a little bit more consequence on
Mm,
results. That's a little bit more cutthroat, and when it's not going so well, like you're suggesting there, this the Scottish team having to drop down a level and um, play nations that most people wouldn't even know play cricket, right?
yeah, no, exactly.
Just finally, I want to touch on your mental routine. So you've talked about getting yourself in a position to make a good decision. So for you, the idea of making good decisions, once again, you've talked about process focused. Do you have a process that gets you into the right frame of mind to make good decisions?
I'm more of a routine kind of guy when it comes to that. So that's probably like a bit of routine slash superstition, but I don't really believe in the superstition, but I do it more because I feel like it adds to my routine, if that makes sense. Um, for me, I've always like I've just planned my weeks, so I really like kind of writing down how the week would look, what the training would look like, and what I want to work on, and then I just kind of tick them off as I go, and then I just play. And I have three things like I write every day. It's head to the ball, play straight, play late, and that's it. And then that's kind of like my mantra. Um, and then I would just kind of have a structure in place of how I'd want to go about it. And it's, to be honest, it's not always correct. It's not always right. It's not always what happens. Some days it's like, oh, we're not training today because we got a day off, or actually we are training today, and then I just kind of adjust it as we go. But it's just nice to have like that kind of structure set in tone. And then when I go and play, it's just play. Because like I said earlier, it's like just backing the work that I've done, and then backing my skills when I go out there.
That's intriguing because I know, there can be times throughout anyone's career, right, where for whatever reason, the level of concentration required in order to be fully focused in a particular moment on the ball can waver, and there can be obviously many reasons for that. So have you
Mm.
found any challenges with that, and potentially, how have you found ways to overcome that?
Yeah, I feel like there's always I've always had the issue sometimes of I guess checking out mental. Checking out's probably too strong of a word, but just switching off mentally in long innings. There's been stages throughout my career where I've been in positions where I've been like, I can really cash in here, and I just haven't. And I couldn't really quite put my finger on it, whether that's I think most of it came down to just bad decision making at the wrong time. So a lot of the times I was getting out in like 70s and 80s was just thinking I had to do something when I actually didn't, and understanding that there was more time than I actually thought there was, and just trying to like take a step back when I have that feeling, because like I could sense when it was coming, and you can sense it, like you feel this like anxiety a little bit when you're batting. There's like this anxiousness. You're like second, just doubting a little bit what you're doing. And then that's actually the moment. So, all right, can I just kind of almost go in a third person mode and just like look at myself from the umpire's view and be like, all right, what would I tell Max right now? And that's probably actually you've got more time, and um, that's like a big thing that has helped me a lot recently, is being able to just take a step back and say, okay, when I feel those moments in my innings, it's like, can I just kind of narrow the focus down, be real simple, not worry about what's happening outside, and just focus on the job at hand, which is actually me still being in, even though sometimes it feels like shit. They're probably like, oh, Max should be going quicker. Max should be, not taking that risk on, or something like that. It's like, can I just really dial my focus into what's important?
I hope you found something useful in the podcast that you can apply to your own game. I'm available on my social media channels at Ellie's Batting Mentality on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. And for those of you dinosaurs still roaming around X, my handle is Mark_Ellison. If you believe this discussion will resonate with someone you know, then please share it. It helps us to grow the channel and get even bigger names on the podcast. Until next time, what one action are you taking today to give yourself the best chance of success in your next innings?